Hey, patrons, this is another Patreon video that I'm going to be releasing to the public because people want to know how I am after war seems to have broken out between Hamas and the state of Israel. My personal opinion on this is that this was a coordinated attack between Israel and Hamas and against us, the citizens of the state and the people that live here. It is virtually impossible for the army to have failed this spectacularly. It took them about 7 hours from the beginning of the invasion to do anything. They have helicopters 1 minute away from Gaza, and nothing happened. They didn't try to stop a single person from being kidnapped and transported to Gaza. There were stand down orders. I'm hearing from my sources that many army units were told not to engage the enemy as they were invading. This looks to be a coordinated setup as maybe an excuse to conquer the strip again or an excuse to impose lockdowns or whatever it is that they're doing. I'm not really a geopolitical expert on these things. I just know that nothing is what it seems. But yes, I do believe this could explode into a regional conflict. But I'm not a politics guy. I'm not a war-focused guy, and I don't really know much about these situations other than it looks to me that this is set up. That seems obvious. Because there's no way that the army wouldn't have done anything for 7 hours as thousands of murderers were storming through the border fence that was plowed down by bulldozers. This all seems so ridiculous. But anyway, nothing is happening up here. There are rockets in the north that are being fired, but that is to the west of me. There are very little rockets that ever fall here on the east side, north of the Sea of Galilee. It's pretty quiet here, as it always has been, because we're on the high ground. This is one of the reasons that I live here. But anyway, now that things are heating up, I think I'm going to go into timing. I've been talking about timing more specifically on Chris's channel on Arcadia Economics. I'll be talking about timing more on this channel soon enough. I think we are months away, and this is going to be a more biblically based angle on that. I don't know if these numbers are correct. I'm not saying that they are, and I'm not predicting based on biblical numerology that this is definitely going to happen. I keep these numbers in mind just to keep my sanity, and if they don't end up working out, then I was wrong, or I was reading it wrong. As many people have read it wrong in the past, I could be reading it wrong now, but for what I see and for what it's worth, this is what I'm seeing now. And you can make your own decision. And it does look, for various reasons, that it is lining up with financial and banking realities at this point. So here we go. This begins with the book of Kohelet, the book of Ecclesiastes. There is a famous song, I forgot who it was by, the Birds or something, that quotes Ecclesiastes in Hebrew, Kohelet, written by King Solomon, who was not a prophet. Well, he did speak to God twice, according to the Bible, but he was not a regular prophet, but he was the wisest man ever to have lived. So his words are worth scrutinizing. And he writes in Ecclesiastes about 28 epochs in a list that begins a time to live, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to uproot, etc., etc. And there are 28 of these epics. Now, there is a Jewish tradition that goes back to Chazal, that goes back to the rabbis of the Talmud who inherited their tradition from the prophets, that human history, counting from the first man, from Adam HaRishon, Gentiles call him Adam, we call him Adam HaRishon, the first man, and human history counting from him, not from the creation of the world, but the creation of Adam, human history from there is 6,000 years old. And I'm going to open this with a comment from the Ramban from Nachmanides. Now, Sefaria, the search tool that I use for verses and sources, isn't working for some reason today. I'm not sure why. A lot of Israeli websites seem to be down. But I just took a picture of the actual source that I highlighted in my previous studies of Nachmanides on Genesis. And we're just going to read through his comment. I'll translate it as I read it. So this is the comment. This is Genesis chapter 2, verse 3, I think. So here the verse says, and God blessed the seventh day, and he sanctified it, because that is the day that he stopped his work on everything that he was creating to do. Now here in the highlight, I have a note here in my handwriting, Ramban's eschatological roadmap. So it says here in the highlight, I tell you this from 3 or 4 years ago. I was going through the Ramban, and this is part of the work that I'm working on, Liberty on the Tablets, Cherut al Luchot, This will be included in that work. So here, I'll read it in Hebrew, the highlighted part, and I'll translate it as I read. So he says, Ki sheshet yemei Bereshith hem kol yemot olam. The 6 days of creation account for all of world history. Ki kiyumo yeh sheshet alafim shana, because world history will last 6,000 years. Shalakach amru. Now the Chazal say, the rabbis of the Talmud say, and here's the footnote 39. I could not find the source. I think the pagination is different, or the numbering is different in the source that I have and the source that he quotes here. It says Breshit Rabbah, and note 39 Bet Resh is Breshit Rabbah. That's rabbinic midrash on Genesis chapter 19 verse 14. I looked it up. I couldn't find it. I'll have to use Sephardi to do an exact search of this, but it says here in the parentheses, Yom Echad Mishlei Shehu Elef Shanim. One day is analogous to 1,000 years. It says in Breshit Rabbah, which is a Talmudic era exegetical work on Genesis. So anyway, after that footnote, Yomo Shel Kadosh Baruch Hu Elef Shanim. So he says, he's quoting the midrash here, a day for God is 1,000 years long. V'hinei b'shnei hayamim harishonim haya ha'olam kulo mayim. So in the first 2 days of creation, the world was entirely water. V'lo nishlam ha'hem davar. Nothing was made on those first 2 days. V'hem remez l'shnei alafim harishonim shelo haya behem koreh b'shem Hashem. That is analogous to the first 2,000 years of the world from Adam to 2,000 years later, where nobody called on God's name. There was no worshiping of God. V'kach amru. In this footnote 40, this quotes Maseches Avodah Zarah Daf Tet Amud Aleph. So this is a tractate of Avodah Zarah in the Talmud, page 9, side 1. Shnei Alafim Tohu. I actually read that part recently. I'm going through Masechet Avodah Zarah now. So it says the first 2,000 years was Tohu, was like spiritually empty in the world. There was no recognition of God at all. The first day of creation was the light. Elef shel yemot Adam shehaya oro shel olam. That was the first 1,000 years that Adam lived. Adam did recognize God. None of his kids did. They all ended up being pretty bad until I think Enosh 1,000 years after that. But here it says that Adam, he lived to 930, so approximately 1,000 years. So the first day is light, and that corresponds to the first 1,000 years of history where there is light because Adam is still alive and he recognizes God. Or Olam Makir et Boro, he recognizes his creator. And there was no idol worship until Adam died. So the second 1,000 years of the world corresponds to the flood, right? That was the time during that second 1,000 years when Noah was separated off from mankind, and his righteous kids were separated from the evil people of the world who were flooded with a flood, right? The second day is when God separates the land from the waters, and the second 1,000 years is the flood. The third day, you have the growth of the trees. This began when Abraham, the first one to recognize that there was a God after Adam, was 48 years old. And that's when they started to use God's name again, to understand that there is a creator. Okay, so I'm not going to go through the whole comment. You can look it up yourself. Nachmanides on chapter 2, verse 3. There are English translations of it, so you can read it. But he corresponds each 1,000 years of history with a day of creation, and history will close at 6,000. Right now, we are in year 5,784. Rosh Hashanah was 3 weeks ago. We just entered this new year, 5,784. That's the year of the world, not the year of the Jews. We became a people after that in the year 2448 when we received the Torah. When we left Egypt and then received the Torah, received our law from God in the year 2448. That's when we were founded as a people. But the world is 5,784, counting from Adam Arishon, counting from the first man. That doesn't mean that geological history is only 6,000 years old or 5,700. It might mean that. I'm not a young Earth creationist. I understand that there are people who are, and that's fine. I don't really care how old you think the planet is. But the history from when mankind recognizes that he is created until now is about 5,784 years, according to me, and I think that's pretty accurate. So, and by the way, this video is brought to you by Dirty Man Safe. If you go to dirtymansafe.com and you use the promo code ENDGAME10, you get 10% off and you get me credit. You can help this channel out greatly by helping yourself and getting a Dirty Man Safe. I'm proud to affiliate with these guys. The idea is a safe that will last pretty much forever. It's made out of non-biodegradable plastic that you put into the ground in your backyard. If you bury it deep enough, it will not be detectable by metal detectors, but you have to look up the range of a metal detector, but it is possible to hide it from metal detectors. There is an outside sleeve that is taken out of the inside here, and then you put your stuff in there, and then you put it inside the protective plastic. It is airtight and watertight. You can store anything in there. And now that I think about it, the idea of a safe in your home is not so smart, even if it's hidden, especially if it's not hidden. It's a telegraph that there's something in there that people will want to steal, and all you need is like a chainsaw just to cut it off of wherever it's bolted down to, and then people can just take your stuff and then open it later. It's not that hard to do. So what you really want is a dirty man safe, so you can bury this stuff somewhere and mark it and hide it from metal detectors, and use the promo code ENDGAME10 for 10% off and to give me credit on the sale. I would really appreciate it, and I look forward to working with these guys. I had a talk with him, and this product seems really solid. But anyway, I think it's appropriate to work with them now that war is broken out. It looks like the end game is very close. How close exactly? Well, we have this from one of my rabbis. He might be wrong, he might be right, but here it is. So this he is talking about the book of Kohelet, the book of Ecclesiastes, right? The 28 epics, right? So his point here in the Hebrew is he says, Amru Chazal, right? He's quoting Chazal again. These are the rabbis of the Gemara, the Talmud, and Sanhedrin 97, page 97b. Sheshadalfim Shana Have Alma. The world is going to be 6,000 years old. This is an old Jewish tradition that goes all the way back to Chazal, and before that, the prophets. Okay, so now here is his chiddush. Here is what his new calculation here that is very interesting if you plot world history, especially Jewish history, by these years. So Yesh Makom Lirot at 28, the 28 epics of Shlomo, of Solomon, that are in Ecclesiastes as encompassing all of human history, right? So if you take 6,000 years, divide them by 28, so here are the 28 epics: a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to uproot, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to spread out, a time to build, a time to cry, a time to laugh, a time to eulogize, a time to dance, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together, a time to hug, a time to distance from hugs, a time to request, a time to lose, a time to guard, a time to send out, a time to tear, a time to sow, a time to be quiet, a time to speak, a time to love, a time to hate, a time for war, and a time for peace. Those are the 28 epics. If you divide 6,000 by 28, you get 214 years per epic. Now, just to go through the beginning here, I'm not going to go through every single time period here, but it does match up very well to biblical history and to current history. So we'll do some of the biblical history, we'll do some of the current history. A time to be born, that says here, that's the creation of man 6,000 years ago. From year 1 to year 214. A time to die is when Cain was murdered. When Cain was murdered by, when Hevel was murdered by Cain. Abel was murdered by Cain. That's the time to die. A time to plant. That's the beginning of the development of culture with all these inventions of copper and music and these kinds of things. Matches up to the year 643. If you add up the ages in the Bible of the people who were involved here. Year 857, time to uproot. That's when a third of the world was wiped out. This is not the flood. This is according to the rabbis of the Gemara. So we can keep going here. 1714, that is a time to build. Time to build corresponds to the years of the Tower of Babel. A time to laugh corresponds to the life of Abraham. The life Abraham laughed when he had Isaac at the age of 99 in 2047. That period ends in 2142. We can keep going here. We're going to go towards the end here, so you can see how it also matches up with modern history. We can start with a time to love. A time to love ends in 53-55. This is around the Renaissance. This is during the Renaissance of the 14th to 15th centuries, 14th to 16th centuries, or Renaissance, Europa. And we have a time to hate. That ends in the year 55-69, which is a year of incredible pogroms against the Jewish people and a lot of murders in Eastern Europe. Now we have a modern history here. Eit Milchama. This is the second to last epic. And look at the year here, 5784. It ends in 5784. That is this year. This epic of a time for war ends. So this is the last year of Eit Milchama. I'm not sure if it ends this Nisan, this Passover, or next Passover. It depends if the count here started at 1 or 0, and that's kind of confusing. The same thing with the millennial issue, 2000, 2001, whatever. So here, this epic started 214 years ago, which corresponds to Napoleon's invasion of Russia with 600,000 soldiers in the Grand Armée. He lost that war. 600,000 corresponds to the number of Israelites that left Egypt. It is the number that has a lot of halachic significance for Jews, a lot of Jewish law significance. When you see 600,000 people, you say a special blessing. This also has a lot of other significance in terms of Jewish law. But anyway, this period of Eit Milchama, time for war, began 214 years ago in 1811, right? That's Napoleon's invasion of Russia, continues into World War I, continues into World War II, the nuclear age, and possibly Gog and Magog, Gog and Magog, and the book of Ezekiel, which is the final war. And this ends this year. So if it ends this Passover, and the Jewish tradition is that the Messiah will come in and to redeem the Jews and rebuild the third temple around Passover or on Passover in the month of Nisan. It could be this year, it could be next year. I'm not sure which one it is, but either way, it looks like a major war has broken out, and I don't know what the end of it will be. I don't know if it will become regional or turn into Gog and Magog, or the final war. Maybe it won't. Maybe this is all just spinning of spiritual wheels and it's a false calculation. It could be. I'm not putting 100% faith in it, and neither should you or anybody else. But it is something to think about and focus your energies, that to remind ourselves that we are not in control, that the bad guys are definitely not in control. They feel they are, but that is the hubris of all evil. That this is God's planet. This is God's people. We are all God's people, the good and the evil among us. All of us are in control by him, and he decides what happens in history. Is this the last year of Eit Milchama, of a time for war? Are we headed into a time for peace in 5784, 5785? I sure as hell hope so. So keep it together, keep up the faith, keep preparing with joy and with calm, and do what you need to do. And I will do the same here in Israel, and together we will pray to God to get through this period of history, which has to happen, and we all end up on the other side healthy and peaceful and fulfilled. This is Rafi, the Endgame Investor. If you enjoyed this video, then do sign up for a 2-week free trial of the Endgame Investor at the link in the description below, or buy a Dirty Man safe with code ENDGAME10 to support this channel and get your Dirty Man safe within a few days. That, I believe, is probably the safest place to put it. Or, of course, become my patron on Patreon to get more videos like this for as little as $3 a month. It really helps me out. It keeps me independent. It keeps me fulfilled, and it keeps me being able to produce more of these videos. Thanks, and I will see you guys next week.